Our conversation is about the Electoral College, and we'll be talking a little bit about the merits of the Electoral College here in a bit with Bill Prince, who's showing up very soon. Prior to that, however, I want to take a bit to say hello to a person who made history 2 years ago when you voted in the Electoral College, because Robert, as you know, this is Robert Santiacum. He was an elector in the 2016 Electoral College, and you cast the first electoral vote in history for a Native American, and that was for Faith's Spotted Eagle. Before we do that, I can take 60 seconds. The Electoral College is set up so that there is actually a collection of 538 people called electors. These electors are split up among the states, and whichever way the state votes, those electors are heavily encouraged to vote according to how their state voted. However, electors, as Robert will tell you, can choose to go a different direction and be what we call faithless, in which case they can vote for anybody they want. Are there any restrictions, Robert, as to who you get to vote for?
Well, there's laws. There's a law in Washington State, but I think it varies.
Well, Robert, first, can you take a moment to introduce yourself, and then we'll get into your business as an elector, how you became one, the decisions that you made, the whole experience of being one. First, introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, so I want to wish everybody a good afternoon down there in the Ozarks. My name is Robert Santiacum. I'm up here in Washington State, near Tacoma, Washington. I'm a member of the Pelt Tribe of Indians, and that city resides in our reservation. So it's a place up here, the Puget Sound, near the Salish Sea. And so I am a grandfather of 11, a father of 6, and a husband, and have an 11-year-old living here with me, Sonny Boy. So that's a little bit about myself.
So let's start at the very beginning. How did you become an elector? How did that happen?
Well, by showing up and showing out. 2016 was turning into be a very interesting time. A lot of things on the landscape was happening in with the environment here in the United States, specifically out there towards Standing Rock and the Cannonball area. I showed up and showed out. I was just to say a little bit. I was the chair of a legislative district, the second legislative district of Washington State for a few years. I was thinking about running for state representative, got a taste for it, and then I backed off for a little bit, and then somebody asked, "Hey, do you feel the burn?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so I started following Bernie a little bit, and Oak Flat was happening at that time, and he started opening dialogue, sent his wife down there, and so I started feeling the burn a little bit, and then the caucuses started happening. And I just happened to show up at the caucus, and some of the gripes or the complaints that people were having, I felt the privilege of complaining about, haven't trickled down to Indian country for us to complain about yet. And so I hopped on a chair, said a few things about where I've come from, who I am, and how I feel. And next thing you know, I got a knock on the door here. You're going to the next round or whatever it was. And so I went down to our state capitol in Olympia, said a few more words, and next thing I know, I was outside the Capitol, and then I found out, like secondhand, that I became a delegate. And then at the state convention of Washington State, that's when I was elected at large as a male elector.
And this was what point in the calendar? When on the calendar are you selected as an elector?
In June.
June, okay. And at that point, we pretty much know who the candidates are.
Yes.
We know it's Trump. We know it's Hillary. We know those are the two major party candidates. So you were selected as an elector. At that moment, you knew who the two candidates were. I know you're generally not a fan of either. Did you know you were going to be faithless in June? Or
No.
Is that a decision that you arrived at over time?
No, I shared the whole story with you guys, a year ago with you and Kara. And so it was, I don't know if we have time to go into it, but I was just sitting there talking with a friend of mine, and my elder from across the mountains, Patsy Whitefoot, there's two microphones, one on the left and one on the right there. And I was sitting having a conversation. Next thing I know, I heard my name was nominated, and it was like real quickly seconded. And so at that time, you're supposed to rise and accept, and or deny it or decline it. And so I was I really didn't want to be an elector. But in my situation, when an elder asks you, when they're asking, they're telling you. So when they tell you to do something, you do it, out of respect, because they're the wiser ones, and you just know. And so I couldn't have no argument at that time. And so I thought, well, I better get up and accept this nomination. But it quickly went over to the other microphone where somebody else was nominated, John Q. Public, and he accepted. And so I thought it was coming back to me for me to accept and rise to say yay or nay. And it went to the next guy. And so I paused right there because it was kind of a cycle circus that came to Washington State from Nevada, right? Just a week beforehand, the chair down there suddenly shut down everything and made up her own rules. And so this kind of fiasco came to Tacoma, Washington. And so there's a lot of infighting going on between the Hillary and the Bernie peoples and delay tactics. So like 4 years prior to that, we were asked to be electors for Obama. My wife ended up being an elector for Obama. I didn't want to, and there was nobody standing in line for that. There's only 2 people, and in 2016, there had to have been 200 plus people that stood in line. This thing went on for hours and hours and hours. And I came back after about an hour or so, and I asked the chair, I said, hey, Noel, I never got a shot to say yay or nay or give my speech after listening to some of these people here. I think I want something to say, And so she goes, Rob, really? Just go sit down. So, what are the odds anyway? And so when it all came down to it, yeah, I was the elector. And so when I was walking out of that facility.
Robert, if I can jump in at this point, at what point, well, before we get further along in the electoral vote that you cast, at what point were you familiar with Faith Spotted Eagle? At what point did you gravitate towards her? At what point did you think this is a person that deserves a presidential vote?
Oh, that was easy. So I had a radio program here in Tacoma, Washington, on KLAY. It's called Tribal Talk Radio. And so for the past 8 years or so, I've been having people, the shakers and movers, the people that have been on the front lines, opposing and resisting these heinous ideas of continually raping our mother. And so with the Keystone XL, the Bold Nebraska, Cowboys and Indians, the Nebraska Alliance, these different alliances that she's created, and the bridges that she created to work with non-native peoples together and bringing unification, common sense, and bringing an awareness to what's occurring out in the middle of the nowhere, people that have already been marginalized, people that for 500 years, whatever. But she over the years has exemplified and showed herself to be a leader, not an elected, but a well-grounded leader with traditions and values. So she's been on my radar for years, her and Winona.
So you have, just to kind of clarify and interpret what you had just said, this is a person who led the charge against the Keystone pipelines up in North Dakota, correct? And
yeah,
really
correct.
Kind of a special experience because primarily the people that protested that, obviously the protest was on behalf of Native peoples in that area, but primarily the protesters are non-natives. They came from everywhere in the country to gather in the middle of nowhere as far as non-natives are concerned up in North Dakota to protest against this. And I think the Obama administration ended up opposing the Keystone pipeline at the time, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So her story, very, very interesting. Had you communicated with her? Did you tell her, hey, I'm going to cast you a vote? Or was she as surprised as the rest of us when you did that?
Yeah, she was surprised as the rest of us. Yeah. Or the rest of everybody else.
Did you hear from her at any point?
Pardon me?
Did you hear from her at any point where she said, hey, thanks?
Oh, yeah. She came out to a local college, Evergreen College, home of the Gooey Ducks, and shared down there, so we were able to get together. I was kind of not feeling well at the time, so it was a quick hug, smile, and a picture.
So what do you say to somebody, I know you've thought about this a lot over the years, because you were a faithless elector. What do you just say to somebody who says you subverted the will of the people of the state of Washington who overwhelmingly supported the Democratic candidate?
Just say thank you.
Okay, let me rephrase. What do you say to somebody who says you subverted popular will voting for Hillary Clinton? There's no part of you that says America's built on democracy. There's no part of you that's like, I have derailed democracy a bit with my vote.
I had a whole nation of people asking me that and saying that to me, and it's like addicts. They're in huge denial. They're afraid. They don't have the courage to take the first step to admit they're powerless of their addiction. And so no matter what I'd say to anybody, that is the truth. By me, I'm a medicine person. I sacrifice a lot to heal other people using traditional ways like this. And so when I went back there, that's the lens I'm looking through, is truth and reality. Having my moccasins or boots on the ground in Philadelphia at the DNC and seeing the truth, seeing that, because I went back there knowing it's all scripted, right? Well, we all know it's all scripted somehow, some way. But when you get back there and actually you see the degree and the depth of the deception and the distortion of the truth. Because when I was walking home after we drained that, the Wells Fargo venue, right? So we left that place empty. And so you bring the people from up above, down below, and the Craigslist people, actors in. On the way home, I was listening to the MSN by the Constitution Hall, and I had a degree of credence for Chris Matthews, and really couldn't hear what he was saying. So I went back to the hotel room that evening. People went off to Nina Turner's and off to Jill Stein's campaign. People were just really pissed off, and so I got to my hotel room. I turned on my MSNBC, which I cared for at that time a little bit, and it was saying that 80% of the Hillary delegates have now come over and got in line, and we're waiting for the other 20%. And by the end of next week, that should occur. So I switched it to CNN, and it was exact same words, and then over to Fox, and it was 80% waiting for the next 20%. I was thinking, we didn't even have 80 people, supporters going over to her like this. And so it was what I've seen behind the scenes, and what I know is that it was a lie. And so I brought that back home, and instead of the energy about, hey, we need to get behind and get out there and beat the ground and make sure that Hillary gets into the White House. So what happened back there was a lie. It was just more of it. And so I was concrete in my decision and in trying to express that. And so what they left out a lot of those interviews was I was trying to tell the nation that, hey, until you get somebody that can talk about something other than grabbing genitalias or being under the investigations or any sort of we actually had Mickey Mouse and Bozo the Clown to pick from, and I thought America was a little bit wiser than that. And so I was saying, hey, why don't we just take a break until we can get some candidates to choose from?
Robert, I'm sympathetic to the fact that the two candidates for president in 2016 were both, I don't think it's controversial to say they were poor candidates, but I have felt that people in the past have voted for people I disagree with or are poor candidates. Mm-hmm. And you just have to respect the choice of the people, do you not? I mean,
well, when I asked my elder who nominated me, I said, why did you do that to me? And she says, because of who you are, your character, your mettle, and how you carry yourself. She goes, remember, she goes, don't be a political I'll leave that part out. But what she had said was, remember, it's the will of the people. I said, exactly. I said, the will of the people. I go, we endorsed him at our state convention. That's the will of the people. Decisions are made by those who show up and show out. You get off the menu and at the table, the fork and knife in your hand by showing up and showing out, and that's exactly what happened. And so what I seen, and it sounded to me like this company called America wanted a woman for president. They wanted a leader, and that's exactly what I voted for. A face spotted eagle is a leader. She is not an elected. We knew exactly, what he was going to do. He expressed before he became that. Yes, we're going to use eminent domain. Those pipelines don't go 10 feet without eminent domain. Here's how we're going to make America great. Canada's going to pay for it. So we knew exactly where this guy was, but we knew with Hillary, it would just go deeper like this. And but remember in 2016, it didn't start off too fair, did it? We had that thing called these super delegates, so the scales are already tilted, you know.
Well,
So,
Robert, do you like the Electoral College? Do you think it's a good idea?
no.
Why is it a bad idea? Is it because there are people who can make decisions other than the general public have made? Why do you think it's a bad idea?
Yeah, I think it's a common sense. You know, it's like, you know, you get 5 people. Hey, who wants to jump off the cliff? Raise your hand. You know, there's the vote. Pretty simple. You know, you don't need to go have an electoral college come and change that vote. You know, it's just common sense. And I think this country's got a way off course of that, or has lost sight of that. You know.
So after we get done talking with you, I'm going to yell at my friend Bill Prince for liking the Electoral College, because I agree with you. It should. Yeah. When we're voting for the president,
right,
to go popular vote.
Right.
That's what, lucky you, Washington chose the person that won the popular vote, which was Hillary Clinton. So I struggle with your decision. I respect the passion with which you made the decision. You and I spoke last year or earlier this year, and you were so passionate about the choice that you made. But I gotta say, I disagree with it, because the people did speak, and I agree. Maybe it wasn't the best choice, but the people spoke. They said Hillary Clinton should be president, and yet the Electoral College went the other way, yourself included. So I have trouble jiving those ideals that you express very passionately with the decision that you made.
Yeah. That's a lot of times I ask people, I said, well, do you sacrifice a night and an all morning to pray with me? You know, I have those 6 children I talked about, you know, and I have 11 grandchildren. When Bernie back then says, you know, hey, I'm not going to do it, let's go support her, in that moment I could see through my hand. And before Standing Rock blew up and erupted, next to me was a delegate from North Dakota. And Chase Iron Eyes was running for the Senate next to me. And then there was a grandpa and his granddaughter. So there's 4 delegates from that Standing Rock Cannonball reservation that were next to me. In that moment, she was standing up. You know, there were only 3% what was left of a 100%, which I'm not looking at classroom. It looks like everybody's enjoying 100% of their peoples, whereas we're just 3%, like the insects, the plants, and the animals that are left on this earth. And so when this lady was saying, hey, it's all going to be okay, Hillary's going to make it okay for us, I asked her, hey, do you drink oil? Does your agriculture drink oil? Does your livestock drink oil? Because these relatives here do. I said, I'm kind of surprised that you can still see me, because I can see through my hands. When I get back home from Philadelphia, I wonder if I'm going to be able to see my children, because their generation is now vanishing. And when my 11 grandchildren, I'm probably going to have to light a sage stick and use the smoke to find my Casper, the friendly ghost called my grandchildren, because their generation is now gone.
All right, Robert, if it's okay with you, I would love to open up the room so that anybody here who's interested might have a comment for you or a question for you, if that's okay, sir.
Absolutely.
All right, anybody have a comment or a question about anything he said, any thoughts he's expressed? Let's start back in the room. Your name again?
Gabriel.
Gabriel has a comment or a question, sir.
Yeah.
Brother Means said, Russell Means said that we're institutionalized as a nation, as other brothers and sisters and natives, and that the new modern Indian is American citizens now. Our people don't have a vote. You know, my people are Muscalero, Apache, and we're the same way as your people in Washington. We're looked down as the lower class citizen in impoverished areas. Our poverty stands different than Brooklyn, than Los Angeles. Our votes don't count. Even though there is 200,000+ of our people, those 200,000+ votes don't count. Minority is what we're not. You know, even our brothers, the Hispanics, which they're mestizo, their votes don't count, because they're looked on as illegals, or we're illegals, or we pick the cotton, we pick the fields. They don't vote like us. They don't think like us. They're not going to work the fields. They're not going to be on those voting fields in California. They're not going to be working the farms like our people do, still daily. Mm-hmm. We're not. What you did was open up another branch for our people to succeed.
In what way?
In what way? Mm-hmm. We've never had a vote. 500 years, like you said, we haven't had a vote. They tried to kill us in 1852, 1842 by killing all our buffalo, pushing my people from Washington to New Mexico. We originally came from Washington and ended up on a resident in Rio Doce, New Mexico. You know, we got the Tiwa, the Apache, the Hopi, the Navajo. We're all brothers of one nation, but we separate ourselves by a piece of land.
What do you say, Robert, to comments from our friend here who say that your one electoral vote, but the first in American history for a Native American, gives their community, the Native American community, the respect and an elevation of status that they've lacked in all of American history? Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
Robert, what do you say to how your electoral vote has impacted the Native American community?
You did something Russell Means couldn't do.
Yeah. That's just how the creator, I don't know, you know, it's just how the creator, I don't know, you know, hopefully when we look back on, hopefully we'll have some generations we can look back on and say, hey, for one, you know, there was once a time where in American history, common sense showed up and showed out, you know, where they had a chance to be a tetherball and bind around and unify around some common sense that this country needed, because in the last 2 years, you know, there's been nobody with a strong or firm hand on the wheel. So in Indian country, a little is always a lot, you know, and as over the years, we saw always the vote, the white vote, and then the Negro vote. And now it's the LGBTQ vote, and then the Latino vote, and never a Native American, Indian, Native vote. You know what I'm saying? So it's I can understand where there's a sense of pride in that hey, for once we mattered.
Yeah, and there's actually, if you read the Constitution, the clause that we use historically to say how bad civil rights were at the beginning of the country is the 3/5 clause.
Yeah, we're part of that.
You guys actually, Native Americans, if I could just branch you, Native Americans actually have a 0/5 clause in the Constitution, because populations were to be counted. White people count as one, non-free people count as 3/5, excepted for Native Americans, which got 0 representation. So there's no attention ever paid to the 0/5 clause, the 0-person clause, relative to the 3. I guess I hadn't thought of your electoral vote as I knew it was a protest vote, but I didn't know it was a protest vote on behalf of a Native American population that feels underserved. One moment, Robert. Hunter, do you have a question or a comment?
Is there anything that the U.S. government could do now to fix what we've done for years, centuries?
We passed reparations, but they were obviously...
We buy it back every day when we go buy soil to plant our fields.
What could, in your opinion, we'll end on this question. Robert, in your opinion, how is there any way in 2018 the American government can act in a way that your community would see fit as fully respecting you folks and your rights?
No, they haven't even admitted anything has occurred, so I don't know. The empire's too big for itself right now, so it's just a matter of they have to always go around. The Bible says so, and that it also says pride cometh before the fall. So it's I don't know. You know, it's we just got to keep leaning into it. You know, we hold on to our traditions and our values, and we know what's at stake, and that's why you listen to our elders. You know, to remember. You know, that's all I was doing. You know, my protocols, listening to my elder. I followed my instructions. It led me in the right way. America now has an example what a true matriarch and a true leader really does and looks like and feels like. You know.
Robert, one moment, please. Anybody else have any comments, questions, anything for our guest speaker today?
I have a question.
We have a question, Robert.
I don't think you can see me. I'm over here.
You can't see most of us.
This might be taking it in a slightly different direction from what we've had so far, but I'm just curious if after your decision to be faithless, is that what it's called, were you subject to any type of criticism that wasn't political, that was more directed at your race? Did people say terrible things because of the choice that you made?
Oh, yeah, that happened after probably about 20 minutes after I gave my interview with the Associated Press from Facebook Hill and Standing Rock. I thought I was just going to be in the newspaper So I told my wife, well, tomorrow get ready for a hex storm to hit. And so it got cold, and we went up to the casino, and that's where you get some more reception and charge your phones. And now standing in that lobby, because we left, it was about 20, 30 minutes later. Also, my phone went off like a casino machine that just hit the jackpot with notifications of how I could go screw myself and how many different ways. And it came in where I ended up, my mom says, you're all over television, you better get home. So we made our way back from Standing Rock, and the phone was just going off one after another of all the hate. And that's why I found that love does conquer all, because I picked out 5 of the worst things that I'd never considered beyond my imagination of hate. And I reached out to them, and I was just saying, thank you. I appreciate you for expressing yourself to me. Your feelings matter to me. I understand you. I love you. Send. And more hate. So anyway, 5 people like that. I got 5 friend requests. And when I pulled into my driveway, it was like, I told my wife, love does conquer all. And that was like 11 o'clock. I got my family upstairs. And I came back to unload my vehicle. There was a car out there, well, I'm looking at where the car was. It was out there beside my driveway. And this is like 11 o'clock at night. And so I turned off all the lights on my house. And eventually I ended up, because prior to that, in September, when I talked to Politico, neighbors were coming into my driveway, or if I was outside, they were kind of attacking me verbally. And then they'd pull into my driveway. The police came to my house 11 o'clock at night and harassed me. And then I ended up in the safe house, though, when I got back from Standing Rock. So I was in the safe house for 4 days up until the election night. And that was a pretty interesting night, too, So it was very interesting to hide my family, the protocols of the safety and stuff like that, in preparation to go black in case Hillary did win. And then it would have been a whole different kind of story for myself. So it was what it was. It was harrowing. It was exciting. It was all wrong, and it is what it is,
Robert Santiacum, a faithless elector to 2016 Electoral College. You are one of a kind. You're just a different kind of bird, sir.
I'm a Native American.
There you go. Thank you so much. Round of applause for our guest speaker. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Take care.
Yeah, you too.